My plan today is to do a little tutorial, start to finish, with watercolor washes. And the first thing I do is I use masking tape. This is just cheap masking tape I bought from Amazon, to attach my paper to any board. This is the back of a watercolor paper block, and when I was done with it I kept the back because it's nice and sturdy. But you can use just about anything as long as it's sturdy enough. I use mine over and over again. Sometimes the back of sketchbooks, and as long as it's sturdy. So if you want, I was kind of cheap here with using the tape, because if you want to have that nice border, you don't want to leave any white, and then you have almost a built-in mat. So I was trying to be cheap, and it just made my work harder. So here I have my 5x7 piece of paper. This is a rough paper, the brand of which I always have a block about. I think it's Waterford. It's 140 pounds natural white. I like to use these palettes, and I am going to squeeze out a little bit of yellow ochre. This is Mission Gold ochre. They're not my favorite colors, but I have them and I want to use them. They're very bright. And this is Prussian Blue, and I keep it a little bit farther because I tend to make a mess. And Prussian Blue is very powerful. Now I use this old Windex bottle that I washed well. And you know, over time I bought nice bottles, fancy brown glass bottles, and they don't work as well. So your first step here, I have clean water, I have my paints, I have my brushes. You can use any brush you want. Here I have several. I will probably use, just to keep things simple, this Princeton Neptune number 10 round. And I am going to make things easier for myself. And to have my first simple background wash, I am going to wet the paper first. This will give you a lighter wash, obviously, because the color will be more diluted, but that's absolutely fine by me because I want my first layer to be diluted. But also it's easier not to have marks, brush marks and such. And then I've already diluted my paint a little bit. It's a very bright yellow ochre. The tube even says staining, which is unusual because we think of ochres as earth colors that are not very strong and certainly not staining. But this brand is very bright. So as you see, I'm not doing things traditionally here, but I really like playing with water, and I encourage you to do the same. And this is a way of getting this color somewhat more subdued by adding water. I don't want a bright yellow background. So now the tricky part is that we have to let this dry. Now that the first layer is dry, I'm going to start with the first layer of mountains, and I'm going to do the profile of a mountain that features in so many of my paintings and that I know by heart. So as you can see, I'm not really using a pencil. You can if you want. but you know, doesn't need to be that precise, so it's fun to not use a pencil. So as you can see, it's a very, very diluted form of Prussian blue, and I'm bringing it to the bottom but not completely, leaving a little bit of the first layer of ochre showing. And now I'm going to have to wait for this once more to dry. I'm going to do my second layer of mountains, and again I'm just using the Prussian blue, still at a pretty low tint. I'm going to have the end of the mountains be, and I'm turning the paper so as to be more free. It's easier to do straight lines for me this way, going from top to bottom. There you go. Okay. The brush decided to make it a little bit thicker. So this is my shore, and this is going to be lake. And the way I'm going to describe the lake is with that same color, because by the time we're done it's going to be darker here. So this is, again, I'm leaving previous washes showing. And just to give a little bit the illusion of water. And again, this has to dry. I think this is almost done, and you can speed up the rate of drying, as I hardly ever do, but did for this, because it's a nice day outside and I want to get out, but I wanted to finish this little video tutorial first. So you can use a hair dryer. That's what many watercolorists do. I do not like loud noises, and I'm the kind of person who never dries her dishes, because I figure if nature can do it, why should I make an effort? However, there may be times, such as now, when you want to get that painting done, even though it involves layers that take a long time to dry. And the hairdryer can be a lifesaver. Now I could stop here, but I don't like quite how flat this is. So something you can do is do a partial wash. See, what we did here were mainly flat washes. See how I'm giving a little bit of texture. Mainly flat washes, and then I would call what we did down here brushwork. And I think that watercolor mostly consists of a combination of washes and brushwork. I'm putting a thicker amount of that Prussian blue here. It's adjusting the vegetation that's near the water. There's a lot of water. So these are the two things that I would work on, is brushwork and washes. And again, I'm going to let this dry and then assess whether I need to do something else with it or not. By the way, I see a beautiful watermark forming here. You see that? Some people hate those. I call them cauliflowers. I love them. And now that I see one, I wish we could have had more. We can try. So that happens when you have more water. I think it's the water from here that went in there. So when you have a lot of water, more water added, say here, see how it's happening? If you add a concentration of water that's larger than what's already on the paper, you have what can be called either cauliflowers or blooms. And some people do everything they can to avoid them, and some people like me are just delighted when they happen. I'm going to let this dry. As is often the case, the blooms kind of went away with drying. Not completely disappearing, but they don't have that intense beauty that they did before. So I'm doing a tiny bit more, just almost random shading on these mountains and then the foliage here. And I'm liking how the ochre and the Prussian blue, such a powerful color, play together. I think it works. I think it's nice to see the color of the sky reflected in the lake, which is something we got from having that initial wash. And, you know, there's places where you can actually see the initial wash. And this little recession of the water as well as the recession of the mountains. And I'm kind of pleased with this. And obviously it's not a complex painting. It's more like a sketch, but it's fun and relaxing, and it's a good way of testing colors. So I hope you enjoy this. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section.